Okay, so now you know the deal. We eat some food and then we have to listen to someone again. And everyone was really good last time. It got quiet. The phones were off. I'm like the referee. I have to prepare everybody for the speaker. So as soon as we're quiet, we have the privilege of introducing our last speaker for the evening. No pressure, Barry. I could see people have been drinking more and eating more. Getting quiet is taking longer. That was good. Okay, we're doing good. We're almost there. So our last speaker of the evening to bring us home is Perry Kaplan, a longtime friend, member of the MTC community, a guy who, if you know him, is always happy, always smiling, whether things are good or not good, always open to help others, always says yes to what you ask him. Next year, they'll probably ask you to be the MC. So I'm looking forward to that. And without further ado, we look forward to hearing from Perry. L'chaim to Perry.
Hi, everybody. Yontiv, could not be happier than to being up here right now. Thank you, Rabbi New, for asking me to be up here. So, building on the previous speaker. Can't hear me? Hello? Yes, 1, 2. We're good. Okay, Rabbi. Building on what Chaya and Morty were talking about, and unlike Yermi's advice to wing it, I also elected to write a speech because, Putterman told me to write a speech. So the idea for me talking about how Chassidus has changed me is actually a double question. The first question is, how has it changed me? How do I operate differently? And the second is, how technically have I been changed by Chassidus, by Tanya? So, first thing I'll do is start with some show and tell. I love show and tell. Show and tell. Show and tell. This is a tiny Likutei Amorim. It was gifted to me almost 30 years ago when I had an office on Chabanel. And essentially it was a gift from some Bachrim on Mivsoyim. And if you'll bear with me, it says, the inscription reads, Perry, may God bless you with spiritual and physical happiness. And it's signed by Mendel Matzov and Yudi Dukes. And I actually reached out to Mendel Matzov, who I haven't spoken to since he was a little pisher running around the Chabad house on Chabanel. And I sent him an email. I said, is this the young bacher that was with Yudi on Chabanel at 111? And he says, yeah, that's me. So it turns out he's a Chabad shliach at the University of Wisconsin. And I think that's where he's from. He was a real sweetheart of a guy. I don't really remember him that well, but Yudi I remember because Yudi and I on Rosh Chodesh would either text, once in a blue moon call, what's doing. He was always interested in my progress. Am I on the derech? Do I know what a derech is? Am I off the derech? What happened? Are you married? Are you, never mind, let's not go there. So this book was my initial introduction to Chassidus. Couldn't read a word in it. But sweetheart Yudi would stay a little longer while Mendel went to the adjoining offices. It was like Cheers. It was like 111 Chapel. Johnny was there. He was on my floor, John Finkelstein. And the boys would circulate. It was a very friendly floor. It was all Jews. Everybody was willing to get the blood pressure, and it was nice. So he would stay a little longer, and he would read me the daily Tanya, and it was always on a Friday, and tell me a little bit about it. He would read the Hebrew and explain it to me. Whatever, it was very nice, but it was a thing, right? Like, I enjoyed literally seeing this guy. So I had a lasting relationship with him. Hold on. This is where Yirmiyahu said, "What do you need a speech for?" So sadly, Yudi Alav Shalom passed away. He went into the hospital about 16, 17 months ago, diagnosed with COVID. He left behind him a beautiful wife and children, and he was really a special Jew. It actually, nothing to do with my speech, but what did he end up doing for a living was putting people together that were interested in learning, on the phone. This is a long time he's been doing this. So Yudi's neshama should have a nice aliyah. 6 weeks ago, I'm driving from downtown, driving down to Cary. I notice a cop behind me. Okay, 10 minutes later, I'm making a left, I'm going on to the 40. Now he's right behind me. I'm wondering, I stay in my lane, he's following me. I move over to the next lane, he follows. 5 minutes, I waited in that lane. And then I moved again to trip him. Didn't work. The lights come on, I get pointed to the curb. At this point, my first thought is, all innocent, what did I do? I wasn't speeding, I didn't have a phone in my hand, my seatbelt was on. So my next thought was, I don't have time for this shtiot. I'm busy, I'm running late, I'm already on a call, I have a Zoom to prepare for, and I have an in-person meeting in about 40 minutes. It's one distraction after another, and now this. It's officially become one of those days. I'm feeling inconvenienced, I'm feeling pressured, stressed, and a little hot under the collar. Too many thoughts were just running around my head at the time. And then, enough. Hashem runs the world. And suddenly, like magic, I'm a lot less, I don't care what's happening next at that point. I'm good. Hashem runs the world. So the question is, how do you go from feeling like that to feeling like Hashem runs the world and actually meaning it and not making it an expression, a go-to platitude, like a rationalization. My main concentration, my kavana, is that my thoughts don't control me. I know it sounds like a t-shirt somewhere that you see, my thoughts don't control me. Come on, man, keep on working with me. Keep on working, come on. My main concentration. So it's a very pop psych, simple kind of saying that my thoughts don't control me. Barry Gordon, a professor of neurology and cognitive science at Johns Hopkins said, quote, "We are aware of a tiny fraction of the thinking that goes on in our minds, and we control only a tiny part of our conscious thoughts." CHASSIDUS, specifically Tanya, offered me a system to slow down, to reflect, reset, and improve. Tanya, for me, it's like the martial arts of thought control. 3 weeks ago, the rabbi asked me to speak. The topic, how CHASSIDUS has changed me. I sat down to draft, and all the reasons for saying yes, all the big changes that I saw in myself, poof, were gone, disappeared. My examples are ordinary. An example of change, how I reacted and controlled my reactions when getting pulled over. Seeing somebody in a room that I walk into who has wronged me. Working with difficult people. Tanya is about reactions. Before Torah, I read a lot of pop psychology. There was one book that really struck me by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. He explores the relationship between two modes of thought. System one is impulsive, automatic, and intuitive. This kind of happens when you're not really thinking about what's coming out of your mouth. And the second system is about being thoughtful, deliberate, and calculating. It's a fascinating book. Kahneman describes how the two systems interact and tell us how we think and how we should feel. It was just a very enjoyable read. It was like something that caught my attention, this type of topic. Around the same time, my dad, who saw my Tanya and couldn't read the title, took the book and he went over to Rodal and he said, I want another book like this. And my dad came back to me with Eddie Steinsaltz's Learning Torah. Okay, so I picked up the book. I was reading this book and like, wow, it was just another system of thought. And I thought like, wow, it's for a religious text. And I wasn't prejudiced against reading something Jewish at the time, just something that I just wouldn't have picked up. For a religious text, it really keyed into the human psyche and understood the human condition and was making suggestions on how to proceed and how to operate. A common thread in all the psychology books that I was reading, there was a lot. There was talking about the self and talking about how to manipulate events around you. And like, I could be very crafty, but I'm not manipulative. And it didn't like sit very well with me. But they all roundly agreed on one thing, that we're just like these evolved animals that are helplessly driven by our primal desires and our basic needs. At this point, I'm turning 40, and David Futterman. 40.
He was there.
Sorry, there'll be questions and answers after the. I was turning 40, and David Futterman schlepped me to Freddie and Michael's lunch and learn with the rabbi. I remember the rabbi was teaching, giving over something, and he stops. And he's looking at me, and I'm like, what? And he's like smiling, and he's like chuckling. I go, what it is? Maybe there's like egg on my face from one of the Montreal kosher sandwiches. No, he says, Fischel, you're staring at me so intensely. And I was. I finally met Rabbi Nu. He fitted me with the hook. I still have like the hole didn't close yet. And within months, I was reintroduced to Tanya. I reread Steinsaltz. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi authored a modern, sophisticated view, the nature of human psyche and its struggles. By 2001, I completed the 5-volume series, Lessons in Tanya, for the first time. All of this brings me to this moment right here, standing before you. After many cycles of learning Tanya rather, I can tell you what Tanya is not. It's not instant inspiration. It's not an easy read. It takes help to learn and discipline, and it's a long, short road, and Tanya is a journey. But I can tell you after all these years what Tanya is from my experience. And like, seriously, folks, like what I'm talking about here, it's like an onion. I'm like at the top level of what's going on here. Tanya to me are a pair of glasses for me to frame the world differently, looking at things differently. Tanya and Chassidus is pure heart. And when you take Chassidus, it actually injects life and meaning into Torah and mitzvahs. Chassidus also makes joy an obligation. Think about that. Like we're obligated to be joyful. It's like mind-blowing. The Baal Shem Tov said, if tears open the heavenly gates, joy demolishes them. one of my issues was, pop psychology was dismissing spirituality, whereas Tanya was like not shying away from my primal wants and needs. It recognizes my struggles and deals with them through spirituality and intellectually makes it about mind versus heart. So how do I get from hot under the collar, feeling super pressured to Hashem runs the world? Well, Tanya teaches that it starts with awareness. And I'm generally aware of my surroundings. I listen to myself speak. I can speak in a room, in a showroom. I could make a presentation. I could see, based on how people are reacting, how to tailor my pitch, or not necessarily a pitch, but whatever I'm thinking about, to get the reactions that I want. But the awareness we're talking about here is not about being aware of our surroundings. It's at a higher level. It's about being aware of your thoughts, being aware of the thoughts that are popping into your head. One of the things I try to do is like a cell phone. My thoughts, I try to have them like a cell phone, something independent from me, something I could look at the screen, I could manipulate it. I choose what I want to see versus just being led around by circumstance. But slowing down is one thing. I have feelings. And if I'm feeling aggravated, don't tell me I shouldn't be aggravated. I have plenty of reasons to be aggravated. You can't choose how you feel, or can you? Tanya taught me that I can decide what to think about, and how I think changes how I feel. The one idea completely changed my perceptions. In the 1820s, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Lubavitch coined the term "Trach good, design good." Think good, it'll be good. Is that just more wishful thinking? Just another expression? No, it's CHASSIDUS saying mental control is heart control, and the system works. Think of the reverse, some nut job, like, going crazy, road raging in traffic, completely out of control. The complete polar opposites. Tanya says that where our thoughts travel, our emotions are not far behind. So I've worked on becoming more aware. You kind of get used to dealing with all the noise of the world, but from Tanya, it's kind of like to squelch it, to mute it a little bit, so you can actually start understanding how your thoughts are leading your feelings. So being aware means reviewing your thoughts and actions to improve yourself. Again, my kavana is my thoughts do not control me, because Tanya brings that my thoughts are not me. It's pretty wild. They're only a reflection of what my brain and my heart are up to. So I was making progress. I was catching myself. At this point, the Alter Rebbe said, it's all about content, Natalie. Having wholesome content at the ready. The Baal Shem Tov taught, where your head's at, that's where you're at. The Alter Rebbe suggests reviewing a teaching or memorizing Tehillim and repeating them to replace negativity. I learn on Sundays. I try to learn, listen, read something for next week's Parsha. During the week, I think about those things. I'm not reading the 101. I'm reading something a little bit more nuanced, and it helps to elicit more profound thoughts, bring to the surface things that are a little bit more important than being stressed out over a business deal or whatever. So there's many kinds of negatives that can pull you down. And when I say you, I don't mean you, I mean myself. There can be external reactions to someone or something, or they can be a mean thought that I had about someone. Nobody here. Look what happens. When I catch myself, I think, how could I ever have thought that? And Tanya's next lesson is not to mull it over, not to get down on yourself, and not even to engage with it. It says stop giving energy to these thoughts. The Tanya formula recognizes failure and resolves to correct it, and says move on, don't dwell. And I used to be quite a dweller on these things. Tanya also speaks about deeper anxiety issues. Not all negative thoughts come from day-to-day experiences. The Alter Rebbe cautions that serious problems are not solved by replacing the negative with happy thoughts. He tells us not to rely on ourselves. Talk it over with someone who knows about you, who cares about you. Find a mashpia, find a mentor that you can discuss things with, because you cannot always pull yourself up by your own heartstrings. You have to surrender a little bit of yourself in order to overcome things that are serious in your life. It took me a lot of training. I used mitzvahs to help me train. How? Because when I see a l'chaim, I'll deliberately slow down. I'll think of the mezonos to eat beforehand. I'll deliberately make a bracha, and that small moment of delayed gratification is what helps to slow down and like process things. And I mean, honestly, I move at a very fast level. A lot of people coming and talking and doing, and it's like, it's how I'm used to operating. But it comes at a point when you're trying to grow a little bit that you actually have to start listening to your brain and changing how you are, how you behave, and what your behavior is. You're looking to do, to become a little bit more of a refined person. One second. I got the big clothes coming up here, kids. Wait, what? You care about the cops? Yes. I took that out of the story because it's irrelevant. What's relevant are my reactions to it. Yeah. Fine. He walks up to the door and says, "Mr. Kaplan," at which point already he's like on family name basis with me, and he tells me, "You didn't renew your license." Basically told me I was he let me go and pursue that. Just to conclude a little bit here, after you're unable to really resolve something on yourself, it's time to really give yourself up, give up part of your self-reliance, and ask your creator for help. And that's where Hashem runs the world comes into play. It's like replying Baruch Hashem when someone asks, "How are you?" It shouldn't be an expression. I once replied, "Baruch Hashem to Tuki Tritles, how are you?" Her reaction was, "Oh, very nice, you're religious, but I asked how you are." It's challenging to stay in charge of your thoughts and feelings. Your brain is such a sophisticated device. You have the ability to control it yourself. You don't need to be told. You don't need to be coached, but you do need some methodology in order to get there. So how has CHASSIDUS changed me? Baal Shem Tov asks, when will Mashiach come? When these teachings burst forth outside. And yet, his concluding thought, there's an even higher level. So you work on yourself and you get to the point where you walk into that room and that special person who's there, fill in the blank. They've insulted you, they've hurt you, they've done damage. You're not feeling too happy about walking into the room, the restaurant, the shop, wherever. And now you've elevated yourself and you move to neutral. So it's like, okay, finished. I'm not affected by this person anymore. Shem runs the world. It's not, forget it. I'm not going to hold a grudge because it's not healthy for me. But the real challenge, and this is like my main challenge, is walk in, see that person, feel kind of glad that you've moved to neutral and not wanting to kill him, and turning it into joy, turning it into actually liking that person. And that's really quite the challenge. And that's my challenge. I've done it a couple of times, but I'm not that holy, and pretty much that's my challenge. So L'chaim, may you all pick up your own copy of the Tanya. Levi has a series that's running chapter by chapter, page by page. It's really quite wonderful. And that concludes this talk.
Thank you, Official.